Here is your translated text content. Without including other explanations, result 6 years into our marriage. My usually quiet and reserved husband suddenly started acting strangely. He began spending an hour getting ready each day, 2 hours working out, and 3 hours bringing me lunch at the office, all while suspiciously eyeing every young man who walked by. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him until I later found his diary. She left the house without her wedding ring today. Was it carelessness or premeditated? I can't figure it out. I don't dare ask. I'm going crazy. She liked that male intern's post again. Is she trying to kill me? It's all that shameless scoundrel's fault. The man in the mirror is aging, decaying, getting ugly. No, I have to make my physical form more perfect so she won't abandon me. So helpless, so desperate. I'm 5 years older than her. I'm not young anymore. Beauty fades with age and love fades with beauty. This is my fate. One Julian Lancaster and I have been married for 6 years and have never once argued. In everyone else's eyes, he's handsome, successful, gentle and tolerant towards me, respectful and polite, the epitome of a perfect husband. But only I knew the suffocating pressure hidden beneath that perfection. During lunch break, a colleague leaned against the counter in the break room, vividly complaining about getting home too late last night, how her husband sulked, how much effort she spent coaxing him, and how she ultimately lost the right to wear short skirts. At this point, she suddenly turned to me, a provocative smile in her eyes. Cecilia Stewart, Mr. Lancaster is so rigid in business. He must be an incredibly possessive, jealous type in private, right? I lowered my eyes and smiled faintly, not answering. But a trace of bitterness welled up inside me. Quite the opposite. For these 6 years, Julian had been so reserved and quiet, almost like he was programmed. He never got jealous, never asked who I was seeing, never cared what time I came home, and certainly never touched my phone. My colleagues always said that love comes with possessiveness, and no possessiveness means no love. So, perhaps Julian had never loved me. Was I the only one who had fallen into this marriage? My fingertips tightened unconsciously. The warmth of the glass cup spread through my palm. Inside was the sweet ginger tea Julian had made for me before leaving this morning. He had silently placed the cup in my handbag, then turned and went into the walk-in closet. Lately, he seemed particularly concerned about his appearance, even wearing cologne, which he used to hate. Thinking about this, some unsettling thoughts suddenly crossed my mind. On impulse, I opened the home security camera feed on my phone. On the screen, Julian was working out directly in front of the camera. He was shirtless, his Adam's apple bobbing. His perfect muscle definition was exceptionally sexy under the sunlight, and beads of sweat rippled along his V-lines as he exerted himself. His low-rise workout pants hung loosely on his hip bones, slipping slightly with his movements before he casually pulled them up again. Every move felt like some kind of dangerous, highly seductive invitation. My throat tightened. My fingertip hovered over the zoom button for a moment before I finally pressed it. However, the next second, the screen suddenly switched and a video call from my boss popped up abruptly. All alluring fantasies shattered instantly. I squeezed my eyes shut, my fingers gripping the desk, almost crushing the mouse. My boss's call was to inform us about a team dinner tonight. Thinking about the man at home, I instinctively reached for the wedding ring on my ring finger, only to find it empty. I paused for a moment, remembering the playful tussle Julian and I had the night before last. Worried about scratching him, I had taken off the ring and placed it on the nightstand, which resulted in me forgetting to put it back on for the past 2 days. As soon as my colleagues received the boss's message, they all started informing their families. After a moment's thought, I also stepped out into the hallway to call Julian. Julian picked up immediately, as always, his voice low, husky, and enticing. "Cecilia." My face flushed inexplicably. "Julian, I have to go out for dinner with colleagues tonight. I might be home late." As soon as I finished speaking, the other end of the line fell silent. Julian didn't make a sound, even his breathing seemed to stop. Sensing something was wrong, I called his name softly. "Julian, I'm listening." Julian snapped back, his voice raspy as if sanded down, the end of his words carrying a barely perceptible tremor. "Do you have to go?" I was about to say yes, but he interrupted me, his voice trembling. "Will you still come back tonight? Cecilia, you will come back, won't you?" Bewildered, I nodded. Of course I'll come back. Ray, really? His volume shot up, then he abruptly fell silent again, leaving only ragged breathing sounds through the receiver. No, I mean, I'll wait for you at home. It doesn't matter when you come back, as long as you come back. I'll always be waiting at home for you. I sensed something strange about him, so I added another instruction. Remember to leave a light on for me. This time he didn't hesitate, agreeing quickly as if afraid I'd change my mind. Okay. 3. Our boss is a notorious cheapskate. The department dinner was held at a small, messy, cheap diner. By the time the dinner finally ended, my exposed neck, calves, and wrists were covered in red, itchy mosquito bites. Enduring the discomfort, I managed to send several colleagues, drunk beyond recognition, home one by one. By the time I finally pushed open my front door, it was already 10 at night. It was raining lightly outside. The motion sensor light in the entryway flickered on, illuminating an empty living room. Julian wasn't home again. I pulled out my phone to check the time, just about to call him, when the door behind me was suddenly pushed open. Julian appeared at the doorway, soaked to the skin. Water droplets dripped from the ends of his messy hair, pooling into a small puddle on the floor. His usually immaculate white shirt clung tightly to his body, outlining his firm waistline, while his suit jacket and tie were nowhere to be seen. He no longer possessed his usual dignified composure. He looked like a bedraggled, broken stray dog. After a few seconds of eye contact, Julian spoke first, his tone calm to the point of being eerie. "You're back," I nodded, quickly pulling him inside. "Where did you go? How did you get so drenched? Come in quickly." Julian stepped inside mechanically. His gaze swept over my eyebrows, nose, lips, inch by inch, finally settling on my neck. Then he suddenly froze. I caught a faint, familiar smell of cooking fumes clinging to him, very similar to the smell from the diner we were at today. "Julian, did you come to pick me up? I'm so sorry, you couldn't find me because I went too." "I don't want to know," he cut me off sharply, his voice intense and shrill, frantically avoiding my gaze. "I mean, I didn't go to pick you up, I just went for a walk." I licked my lips awkwardly. "Oh, okay. Well, Julian, tonight Julian's eyelashes fluttered wildly. "Enough, I'm tired, I need to take a shower. He then rushed into the bathroom, as if fleeing from something, his retreating figure looking panicked and terrified. I stood stunned in the living room for a moment. I could clearly hear, besides the pitter-patter of the shower, there seemed to be a few muffled, desperate sobs. I felt a little worried about Julian, so I walked over and knocked on the door. "Julian, what's wrong? Are you crying? Are you not feeling well?" After a moment of dead silence, his calm voice came through. "You heard wrong, I'm fine." Hearing him say he was fine, only then did I return to the sofa to watch some TV, relieved. Julian came out after his shower. He stood silently in front of the full-length mirror not far from me, carefully choosing clothes and a bow tie. Hearing the movement, I glanced at him subconsciously. "Aren't you off tomorrow? Why bother with a bow tie? It's so troublesome, such a waste." Hearing this, Julian's fingers suddenly froze mid-air, his knuckles turning an unnaturally pale white. I rubbed my eyes. "That bow tie style is a bit dated. I'll pick out a new one for you this weekend." Julian didn't speak, slowly lowering his hand. The bow tie slipped from his grasp, landing silently on the floor. "Dated? Is it just the bow tie?" He spoke, his voice so soft it was barely audible. I leaned closer to him, catching the pleasant, light fragrance on him. "Julian, what are you talking about?" Julian suddenly turned around, the movement of his bathrobe stirring a damp breeze. I jumped. I saw his reddened eyes, his tightly bitten lower lip, and the rather risque lace pajamas I had deliberately bought for him right after we got married. He had adamantly refused to wear them back then, but now, just as I imagined, a reserved man wearing this kind of clothing certainly had an impact. My breathing hitched, and I struggled to look away. "Haha, well, you certainly haven't lost your touch, old-timer." However, as soon as these words left my mouth, Julian seemed stung, trembling violently. "Old?" Blushing, I nodded, reaching out to intertwine my fingers with his. It's getting late, let's..." Julian froze for a few seconds, then snatched his hand away as if electrocuted, biting his lip, his voice choked. I need to go to the study to handle some things." "You go to bed early." 5. It was strange. He was acting like that again. The panic and avoidance in his eyes were almost overflowing, as if I wasn't his wife of 6 years, but some untouchable plague. I took a deep breath, forcing down the anger rising in my chest, only just managing not to chase after him and demand what was wrong with his pathetic, insecure act today. Tomorrow was the quarterly report presentation, which directly impacted my promotion. So today, I really didn't have the extra energy to argue with him. I drifted off to sleep alone. Sometime in the middle of the night, a sudden coolness on my neck startled me awake. I forced my eyelids open and saw Julian sitting by the bed. The moonlight filtering through the window cast a silver edge along his tense jawline. His eyelashes were lowered, his movements stiff as he applied something to my neck. I grabbed his wrist. "Julian, what are you putting on my neck?" He pressed his lips together, his voice low and husky, "Bruise relief balm." He paused, then added, "Tomorrow you have to present the quarterly report to the whole company like this. People will talk." He had a point. My skin has always been sensitive. Mosquito bites always leave red marks that take ages to fade. Presenting the quarterly report looking like this certainly wouldn't be good. I lowered my hand, closed my eyes again, and mumbled sleepily. "True, thanks, husband. You should get some sleep too." Julian didn't reply, his breathing becoming slightly shaky. He leaned down and gently kissed my forehead. I was too sleepy to open my eyes, so naturally, I didn't clearly hear Julian's next words. "I don't blame you for changing your mind, nor will I question or accuse you, because that's not the magnanimity I should have as your legal husband. I also know it must be that shameless scoundrel outside seducing you. I will handle him. Our marriage will eventually get back on track. Divorce is something that will only appear in others' fantasies. It's absolutely impossible for us to divorce." In the last moment before falling completely asleep, I seemed to hear a pained, suppressed sob, the kind of sound only a heartbroken husband, left alone in an empty house, could make. Then, a warm drop landed on the corner of my lips. 6 the next day. Julian was in the kitchen very early. His recently well-trained upper body was bare, boldly wearing only an apron. The pink apron strings dug deep grooves into his lower back, and the muscles in his back and abdomen rippled with his movements. I didn't know when this usually dull and uninteresting man had become so open. Starting the day off with such a feast instantly dissipated the displeasure from being abandoned by him last night. I lowered my head, trying hard to suppress the corners of my mouth from flying upwards. Julian, cooking dressed like that, you'll get a couple of big blisters and learn your lesson, haha." Julian, the atmosphere felt a bit strange. I peeked up and saw the dark circles under his eyes. "Didn't you sleep well last night?" Julian paused, then said expressionlessly, "No, I slept very well." I walked over and sat down opposite him. "Oh right, the new intern at the company is treating tonight, so I might be back late, or maybe not come back at all because there are some other things." Julian's hand trembled as he ladled porridge, the porcelain spoon suddenly clattering against the bowl rim with a sharp ding. After a long silence, he forced a stiff smile, squeezing out a sentence from between his teeth. "Okay, you're delicate, don't stay out too late partying tonight." He agreed readily and didn't ask anything, seeming completely unconcerned about who I was going with or what I was doing. I once again remembered yesterday's suspicions and his coy behavior. My chest instantly tightened with pain. I grabbed a couple of slices of bread and headed out. Reaching the door, I remembered something and turned back. Julian's spine instantly straightened, his eyes lit up, looking at me expectantly. Without looking at him, I slipped the ring off my ring finger and tossed it in front of him. "Not wearing it today, it's inconvenient." The sound of metal hitting the wooden tabletop made Julian's pupils constrict. He pressed his thin lips together tightly, staring intently at the ring, his knuckles white, veins bulging on his neck. I swept all the documents from the coffee table into my bag and turned towards the door. A second before closing the door, on impulse, I glanced back. Julian stood frozen, watching me leave. His eyes were terrifyingly dark, as if suppressing some kind of storm, even after walking quite a distance. I could still feel that gaze clinging tightly to me. 7 I dashed through the rain into the garage, suppressing the frustration in my heart as I got into the car. Messages from my best friend popped up one after another, the 7-year itch, a marriage of convenience stinging my eyes. Furious, I messaged Julian. "Julian, if this isn't working, let's just get a divorce. Honestly, do you even love me?" If you love me, please tell me loud and clear. If you don't love me, then there's no need to keep forcing this marriage. Let's both cut our losses promptly. Stop wasting my time. It's getting in the way of me finding my young stud. After firing off the harsh words, I fumbled to delete the chat history with him and tossed my phone aside carelessly. So I never saw that due to poor signal, only the first and third messages were sent. Time ticked by. I waited in the car for a full 20 minutes, but no reply came from Julian. My heart turned completely cold. Enduring the dull ache in my chest, I instructed my assistant to draft a divorce agreement and mail it to our home. 8 as soon as I arrived at the company. I instantly pushed all thoughts of Julian aside and threw myself wholeheartedly into work. After successfully completing the morning's tasks, I was very pleased and bought bubble tea for everyone on my team. The new intern, Leo Miller, was the first to rush out and take the tea, then brushed his fingers against my palm. "Congratulations, sister. Today's tea is especially sweet." I pulled my hand back uncomfortably, frowning, about to speak. When I unexpectedly met a gaze from outside the glass door, Julian stood in the shadows of the hallway, dressed impeccably in a suit, holding a thermal lunch box. His eyes were dark, his expression blank. I had no idea how long he had been standing there watching. Seeing him surprised me. "Julian, what are you doing here?" Julian shifted his gaze from Leo to meet my eyes, slowly curving his lips into a smile that sent a chill down my spine. "Wife, I came to bring you lunch." He enunciated the intimate term perfectly, his voice loud and clear. It caused quite a stir in the quiet office. My breath caught. This term of endearment, in my memory, was always associated with ambiguous dim lighting in the bedroom. Under the lights, Julian, his eyes flushed, would press against my collarbone. His sweat-dampened hair would brush lightly against my chin. His panting grew increasingly rapid. Only then would this hoarse whisper escape his throat uncontrollably. But today, he shouted it out loud in public, a setting he used to resist the most. A faint electric current shot up my spine, my heart suddenly trembling. Today's Julian seemed different from usual. Leo raised an eyebrow slightly, a meaningful smile playing on his lips. "So it's Mr. Lancaster. Sister always mentions you to me." Julian calmly replied, "Is that so? Cecilia has never mentioned you to me." The expression on Leo's face instantly turned ugly. In front of Julian, he was like a helpless kid with no way to fight back. Julian ignored the change in his expression, looking down imperiously at this overreaching young man, a slight smile on his lips, as if looking at some worthless trash. "Thank you for taking care of my wife. Care for a smoke?" As Julian spoke, he reached into his pocket for cigarettes. I was still wondering when he had picked up smoking. But the next second, I saw him pull out a very conspicuous red object, not cigarettes, but our marriage certificate. Married for 6 years. Yet he had kept the certificate looking brand new. Only the corners were slightly faded, as if worn down by being held and rubbed constantly over the years. Julian casually tilted his hand slightly. The marriage certificate spun beautifully in his palm, revealing the gold-embossed seal towards Leo. His tone carried deliberate annoyance. "Sorry, grabbed the wrong thing. Accidentally pulled out our proof of legality." Leo clenched his fists, his mouth twitching speechlessly, probably wanting to curse. But meeting Julian's darkened eyes, his anger instantly fizzled out. He stiffly turned his face away, even softening his breathing. Clearly, faced with Julian's absolute power, his anger could only fester inside him. My face had started burning the moment Julian inexplicably pulled out the marriage certificate. I quickly stepped in front of him, snatched the certificate, and hurriedly tucked it into the inner pocket of my bag. "Julian, why did you pull out the marriage certificate? Don't just stand here being stared at by everyone. Hurry up and come to my office." As soon as I finished speaking, the composure on Julian's face shattered instantly, his hand still frozen in that hovering position. He lowered his gaze to look at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of despair, resentment, and unwillingness. Looking at his face, which was gradually losing its color, I inappropriately thought of a phrase, "desperate husband." Snapping back to reality, I pulled Julian towards my office. Every person we passed on the way made me want to bury my head in my collar. Julian followed silently behind me, his gaze dimming inch by inch with my avoidance, until I pushed open the office door. Julian let out a low gasp, the tightly wound string in his eyes finally snapping. He grabbed my wrist. I cried out in surprise as he forcefully pulled me into his arms, pinning me heavily against the floor-to-ceiling window. My face pressed against the cold glass, my back tight against Julian's hot, firm chest. The sensation of being sandwiched between ice and fire left me suspended and uncomfortable, biting my lower lip restlessly. Julian, 67 floors up. Thunder rumbled outside. Lightning seemed to explode right before my eyes. The next second, a subtle sensation touched my lower back. It was Julian, biting the zipper of my dress with his teeth, slowly pulling it down. The sound of the metal zipper separating was exceptionally clear in the quiet office. Julian's cold hand slipped under my dress along the curve of my waist, greedily covering sensitive areas. It sent a shiver through my entire body. My toes curled tightly, then relaxed. The heels of my shoes unconsciously ground against his leather shoes. Julian shifted from squatting to kneeling. He knelt behind me, kissing my lower back with extreme anxiety, his voice possessive and frantic. "You're 5 years younger than me. It's normal for someone young to be dazzled by the outside world. I told you, however you play, however you act out outside, I will tolerate it. Whatever mistakes you make, I will forgive you. Because I know it must be those shameless scoundrels seducing you. You just lost your head for a moment. You'll come back to the family in the end. Even if you have thoughts of divorce, it must be their instigation. Those little brats, I'll find time to deal with them properly, and then put everything back on track." At that moment, another lightning bolt flashed outside. The terrifyingly scarlet possessiveness in his eyes was instantly illuminated, and he murmured softly, "But you shouldn't have actually mentioned divorce, just casually brought up divorce. Even if I'm tolerant, Cecilia, you deserve a little punishment." 10. I had never seen Julian lose control like this. I didn't understand what he was saying and felt a little scared. "What are you talking about? What seduction? What do you mean?" "No, stop moving, Julian, this is the office, let go. Ooh, bastard, if you keep this up, I really will divorce you, I want a divorce." Julian's movements stiffened for a moment, but hearing my threat seemed to drive him even crazier. He threw me onto the sofa. Just as I struggled to sit up, his kiss landed. He held my chin with one hand and took off his shirt with the other, kissing me deeply and fiercely, his tongue invading past my teeth, almost reaching my throat. I had never been treated so roughly by him. Trembling all over, I tilted my head back, my nails digging fiercely into the lean flesh of his back. Despite such sharp pain, he didn't even flinch. It was at this moment I suddenly realized. If he wasn't willingly indulging and tolerating me in his hands, I was just a helpless chick he could crush at will. Snap, and I'd be dead. I bit down hard on Julian's shoulder, physiological tears forced from the corners of my eyes, twisting like a pretzel under his hands. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder roared, but inside, the temperature rose rapidly. Reason was collapsing entirely, the situation escalating towards the indescribable. Knock, knock, knock. A knock suddenly came from outside the door, followed by the secretary's embarrassed voice. "Sorry, Director Stewart, but it's time for the meeting." Julian snapped back to reality as if waking from a dream, straightening up, panting. The dark tide surging in his eyes gradually receded, replaced by regret and self-blame. Plummeting from a great height, I gasped raggedly for fresh air, disheveled, eyes unfocused, lips numb, clothes in disarray. Julian watched me for a long time, then got up and knelt beside the sofa. With trembling hands, he zipped up my dress, then smoothed my hair, his eyes clouded with guilty moisture. "Cecilia, sorry, I." He abruptly turned his head away, letting out a pained whimper, then suddenly stood up and walked towards the door. Unable to bear him running away again, I stumbled to my feet to grab him, but accidentally bumped into the corner of the desk. And the stack of documents I had brought from home this morning, but hadn't had time to organize, scattered across the floor with a loud rustle. Amidst the mess, a black object slid out from between the papers, landing heavily on the carpet. 11. My gaze was immediately drawn to it. Then I saw an unfamiliar black diary. I didn't remember having such a notebook. After hesitating for 2 seconds, I carefully opened a page. Immediately, Julian's distinctive handwriting leaped into my eyes like a viper. "She left the house without her wedding ring today. Was it carelessness or premeditated?" I stared intently at her finger for a full 7 minutes, yet lacked the courage even to ask. She liked that male intern's post again. Is she trying to kill me? What's the difference between a like and a kiss? Does she want to kiss that young boy too? How far have things gone between them? Should I ask her? No, I can't. Maybe she's just waiting for me to ask so she can lay her cards on the table about divorce, then kick me out. I can't accept that. I can't ask her. I really can't live without her. The man in the mirror is decaying, getting ugly. Fine lines are appearing at the corners of my eyes, even my abs aren't as defined as before. I must work harder to make my physical form more perfect, must make it so she can't bear to pull her hand away when she touches my body. The battle for the position of primary husband has always been cruel. I must defeat those bad guys trying to steal her away by any means necessary. So helpless, so desperate, but I'm not young anymore. Beauty fades with age and love fades with beauty. This is my fate. Eventually, she'll discard me like a worn-out rag. Woke up from a nightmare of being abandoned in the middle of the night. I bit down hard on the duvet, afraid to make a sound, afraid of waking her, even more afraid of seeing impatience towards me in her eyes. Cecilia, 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 my Cecilia is my Cecilia. You don't want the ring anymore? Does that mean you don't want me anymore either? You toss the ring aside so casually. Does that mean you'll toss me aside just as casually? I underestimated that idiot actually managing to make Cecilia take off her ring. Does she want a divorce? No, no, no. Cecilia, Cecilia, Cecilia. The page full of Cecilia was startlingly stark. I think I've discovered Julian's little secret. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief, only then realizing my back was stiff, my right hand trembling uncontrollably. All of Julian's strange behavior over the past few days laid itself out before me, clear as a slideshow. Working out in front of the camera at 10 sharp every day, striking poses to show off his slightly damp abs and V-lines. Deliberately spraying the cologne I liked most, meticulously styling his hair, changing into carefully coordinated outfits. So this outwardly ascetic CEO was privately playing the role of a desperate, abandoned husband whose wife was cheating? 2. Afraid of divorce to confront her, resorting to deliberate seduction in an attempt to keep her. Realizing this, I slowly exhaled, a thrill tingling my scalp. My only regret was missing the opportunity, not noticing his strangeness sooner, not finding this diary sooner. 12 soon after, I received Leo Miller's leave request. Out of concern for my subordinate, I casually asked the reason for his leave. Unexpectedly, the 3 people in front of me gave 3 different reasons simultaneously. HR said he was bitten multiple times by a vicious dog on the street. My secretary said he was in a car accident and thrown 4 meters. His nearby colleague said he fell down a 3-meter-high set of stairs and broke his leg. Me? I proactively messaged Leo. Leo, what on earth are you up to? After 2 seconds, Leo replied instantly with a long string of text. On my way home from work, I got bitten several times by a mad dog. I ran like crazy to get away from the dog, then fell down a 3-meter flight of stairs and broke my leg. A kind person took me to the hospital, but then we got into a car accident. I was thrown 4 meters anyway. I can't come to work. I paused for a moment. Then rest well. Leo sent an emoji, then added, Director Stewart, I'm really sorry I can't have dinner with you tonight, but I've already booked the restaurant. It'd be a waste to leave it. Why don't you and your husband go? Would you like to see him after work? See your handsome, charming, suave, imposing, wealthy husband? I frowned slightly. No need, I don't want to. Go ahead and cancel it. Leo suddenly went silent. 13, I hung up the phone and opened the home security feed again. After returning home, Julian had received a package. There was something inside the package bag. After glancing at it a few times, he suddenly seemed to lose all strength, slumping against the door and sliding to the floor. I didn't know what he saw, but the camera showed him sitting on the floor for the entire afternoon, until the 5:30 p.m. alarm went off. He jolted, slowly came back to his senses, mechanically pushed himself up, and walked towards the kitchen. Soon, the sounds of chopping vegetables and cooking came from the kitchen. Even though what he saw had caused him immense pain, once 5:30 arrived, all his emotions had to yield to something more important, which was his wife was coming home from work for dinner, and he still had to cook. My hand clenched tightly. Suddenly, I couldn't wait another second. I needed to leave work, I needed to go home. 14 on the way home, I thought about many things. Thinking about throwing the diary in his face the moment I opened the door. You dog, thought I was cheating. Is that the kind of person I am in your eyes? You have a mouth, only know how to eat with it, right? Why couldn't you just ask me? Too scared to ask. What happened to that decisive, bold approach you have in business? Did a dog eat it? You're full of solutions when helping me, but when it comes to yourself, you just put a noose around your neck, huh? A dog leash, even. I grumbled all the way. But the moment I pushed the door open, the damp, oppressive air in the living room immediately made it hard to breathe. Julian's figure was hidden in the darkness, his long fingers gripping a document tightly, knuckles white, desperately suppressing the urge to destroy everything. Cecilia Stewart, tell me, why do you absolutely have to divorce? My eyes widened in shock. By the dim light, I saw that the document in his hand was a divorce agreement. Damn it, the divorce agreement I casually asked my assistant to draft this morning had actually been mailed directly to Julian. Given that Julian lost control like a mad dog just hearing the word divorce, I scratched my head, quickly explaining, Julian, this is a misunderstanding. I don't want to divorce you. Is that so? A misunderstanding? Julian, thinking of something, suddenly sounded calm, as if asking about the weather today. Then prove it to me. I pressed my lips together, quickly sorting through the entire sequence of events in my mind, about to speak, but he abruptly cut me off. His voice was low and husky, as if laced with ice, carrying an undeniable command. Cecilia Stewart, now, immediately come here and kiss me. My whole body stiffened. I almost thought I'd misheard, subconsciously looking up at him. Julian was still wearing the well-tailored black suit from the morning, his shiny handmade leather shoes gleaming coldly under the light. He looked like a condescending dom. My throat tightened, shocked by my own thought. But looking up, I saw the flash of hurt in his eyes. I sighed, walked over, and under his suspicious gaze, kissed him hard, lips and tongues tangling, turning and exploring. What else do you want me to do? When we parted, I asked, slightly breathless. Julian's eyes darkened, still without a shred of trust. He slowly articulated the very thing he had always been hesitant to reveal. If we divorce, I really will kill that bouncy little brat you have on the side. He was actually using that to threaten me. I laughed out loud. I don't have a bouncy little brat on the side, but I do have a self-pitying old thing at home. Julian was stunned for a second, then said fiercely, then whoever you've fallen for, I'll harm them. I've only ever fallen for you. How are you going to harm yourself? Julian froze abruptly, the gloom in his eyes instantly receding, his fingertips trembling slightly. Resigned, I gently stroked his face. I read the diary. Mr. Lancaster has quite the writing talent, and an even more exceptional imagination. Just not a very good brain, huh? Cooked up a whole drama about a desperate, abandoned husband whose wife is cheating. Can't tell the difference between a mosquito bite and a hickey. But the working out and dressing up and trying to please me is worth praising. I like it. Being pleased makes me very happy. Please keep up the good work. But then again, why didn't you ask me? Are you some kind of modern-day Ninja Turtle? This not using your words thing is not commendable. It makes me want to jump up and slap you twice. Julian's ears turned red rapidly. He pinched himself again and again in disbelief, finally mumbling after a long pause, very softly. You can slap me now too, I won't dodge. Me, after a few seconds of silence. Julian suddenly dropped all pretense, burying his face in my neck, tears falling silently, drop by drop. I was afraid if I asked and you told the truth, you'd ask for a divorce. After all, I really can't compare. I'd rather deceive myself and avoid the truth than divorce you. As long as you're still willing to come home, I can pretend none of it ever happened. My heart ached a little. I cupped his face. My fingertips brushed his nose, red from crying. I watched his wet eyelashes clump together. I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, Julian, you control yourself too well. It made me think for a while that maybe you didn't love me. My mentioning divorce had nothing to do with anyone else. It was just because I mistakenly thought you didn't love me, and I was acting out of spite. I don't want to divorce you either. Julian's voice was muffled. How could I not love you? I could even convince myself to tolerate you doing those things. You have no idea how much I truly love you. 15, after clearing the air. The water in the bathtub sloshed all night long. Hoarse cries of wife overlapped with those moments from memory. My last memory was of the eastern sky breaking, then Julian pouncing again, tirelessly biting my collarbone. I only fell asleep when it was almost dawn, only to wake up early needing the bathroom. I pushed Julian's hand away and struggled to sit up in bed, then immediately realized something was wrong, very wrong, extremely wrong. I looked down, gasped sharply in anger, and turned right around to slap the person behind me. Julian woke up from the slap, didn't feel pain, and shamelessly snuggled closer again, his warm breath fanning the back of my neck. Tusk, who said this old man was old? This old man was fantastic. End of main story epilogue. Julian's sense of duty and responsibility as the older husband. Won the first time Julian realized he was 5 years older than Cecilia was at her university graduation ceremony. Cecilia, wearing her cap and gown, waved at him from the crowd. He stood in the parents' section, dressed in a suit and tie, holding a bouquet of her favorite sunflowers. Cecilia's roommate teased her. "Cecilia, is that your brother? He's so handsome." He didn't clearly hear Cecilia's reply, but a pang of bitterness arose in his heart. His usually prized composure and emotional control seemed to fail him time and again when it came to Cecilia. He knew deep down he shouldn't be like this, yet he willingly continued to sink deeper. After graduating, Cecilia was like a fledgling bird, fluttering its wings, wanting to brave the storm. And he was glad he had already forged armor through the battles and schemes of the business world. He had enough capability to shield her from all storms, sparing no effort to lift her up, to create a sky for her. The love of an older partner is predicting all dangers and accidents in advance, then silently eliminating them for her. It's silent support, willingly being the steps beneath her feet, letting her stand higher, walk farther, yet never seeking credit. 2. The first time Cecilia went on a business trip alone with a young male colleague. Julian acted appropriately during the airport farewell, even nodding politely to the male colleague, rationally wrapping Cecilia's scarf around her neck. "Call me when you land. The owner of the hotel you're staying at is a partner of mine. If anything happens, just go find him." So virtuous, so dignified and generous. Cecilia smiled and nodded, slipping from his grasp like a kite. She even forgot to kiss him goodbye. He turned, drove the car to the remotest corner of the airport parking lot, and punched the steering wheel again and again. The car radio played a program Cecilia had randomly selected before getting out. The host chuckled, teasing. "Relationships with younger partners are becoming more popular now. Older guys need to learn to let go." He slammed his fist onto the radio, letting his bruised hand bleed, then emotionlessly called his secretary. "Get me a different car." That night, he worked out in front of the mirror until dawn, his muscles flushed an abnormal red from overtraining. In the shower, hot water streamed over his trembling shoulders. He suddenly covered his face in panic. Cecilia habitually called him before bed. Listening to the girl's voice on the other end, his restless heart miraculously calmed down. The call continued until Cecilia was almost asleep. Mumbling drowsily, she whispered, "Julian, everything here is unfamiliar. It's really not good. I miss you a little." Julian remained silent for a long time, merely offering a gentle soothing sound. "Sleep early, you have to get up early tomorrow." Then he silently messaged his secretary, booked a flight to the city where Cecilia was on her business trip. He rushed nonstop, flying through the night, afraid that if he was even a second late, she would cry her eyes out. Living in such a harsh and painful world, they were, in fact, each other's remedy. 3. When Julian noticed Cecilia's strange behavior, his heart felt like it was being slowly sliced by a blunt knife. The forgotten wedding ring, the smile directed at her phone, the interactions with the young intern, all fueled his worst fears. During sleepless nights, she had finally grown tired of him, her husband who was 5 years older. But he accepted this reality faster than he had imagined. Actually, as long as she was still willing to come home, as long as she didn't mention divorce, none of it was really a problem, was it? He was willing to be a self-deceiving blind man. He started grooming himself more meticulously, deliberately flexing in front of the camera during workouts, wearing her favorite cologne, bringing the marriage certificate to confront his rival. He humbly convinced himself that the deepest love was actually relinquishing possession, willingly becoming a respectable backup option in her life. But she still mentioned divorce. He was about to lose even the qualification to be a backup. He was losing control. He kissed her forcefully in the office, obsessively wanting to leave possessive marks on her. The moment rationality returned, he didn't even dare to look her in the eye. He dreaded seeing even a hint of disgust or anger, feared even more that she would bring up divorce again. So he fled in disarray, more wretched than ever before. The man who commanded the business world was now like a homeless dog in front of the woman he loved. But soon, Cecilia found the diary. The last veil of propriety between them was torn down. Cecilia didn't scorn him for his possessiveness, as his mother had scorned his father's, nor did she call him a pervert and demand he get lost, like his mother had. Instead, she gladly accepts his unpleasant and ugly side, offering to hug him and calling him a fool. He shed tears, hugging her back tightly, as if finally grasping the thorn that had been hanging over his heart for years. So love didn't have to be silent. So possessiveness could be asserted rightfully too. The responsibility of an older partner wasn't just protection, but also honesty and openness. End.